So this brings us to a final question, and man, it's a really good one. I want to kick this over to you. This says, in a world drowning in noise, how can we personally choose to find and create meaning?
To help set that stage, drowning in knowledge. So today with the internet, cloud storage, and scientific publishing, over 90% of the world's data has been created in just the last 2 to 3 years. In 1975, there were about 500,000 research papers published globally. Today, estimates show over 2.5 million papers are published per year.
Dude, over 90% in the last 2 years.
That's crazy.
So that impacts both of us. That impacts everybody listening right now. It's not even whether you grew up with technology or you spent, predominantly your younger years with it. That amount of information is, I'm struggling to even process that right now. Yeah. That's mind-boggling. You think about all of human history before us, the amount of information we have access to. Once again, it's all about how you approach it. It can be a huge advantage, or it could overwhelm you to the point to where it can keep you stuck, frozen, and paralyzed.
So with all this information, it's very easy. So like through our journeys, it's really easy to say find keywords like imposter syndrome, or it's easy to diagnose yourself with something because everything is so everything on TikTok is all about spectacle. It's all about the new trendy. Oh, here's the new psychoanalysis of men in our demographic, and all men are narcissists. You know what I mean? There's narcissism. It's so easy to diagnose yourself with something, or it's so easy to catch yourself in. But if it's not making you better, if it's not improving your livelihood, if it's not improving the circle of influence that you have,
yeah,
that's when I would say, okay, maybe that's not beneficial. Maybe that's not aligned with your purpose.
Yeah.
If we just talked about it before we started rolling, but looking at my childhood as learning to accept that I'm not a victim of my childhood. It's just the way it happened. Mm-hmm. I can look at moments in growing up and say, oh, I was abused then, or I was this. But I'm not using that knowledge of everything else telling me, okay, the way you grew up was crazy and not how it should have been. I could very easily pull up a TikTok video and say, oh, you have this disorder now, you have this. I could very easily do that. I could very easily believe that. But what does that really do that doesn't improve anything for me. What I can do is say, okay, with the knowledge that I can look back at my childhood and say that was not normal, that's not what that should have been, I choose to look at that knowledge and say, okay, so I'm going to push for what, I'm going to find good leaders, I'm going to find good influencers, I'm going to associate I have to make sure I'm consuming knowledge that is going to benefit my family in the future, that's going to benefit my business in the future.
Yeah.
And so I think
apply it, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I think just making sure I'm discerning that is how I keep myself from drowning in all of that. Like I said earlier, I dove down all those rabbit holes. I went down conspiracy theories. Did we land on the moon? Who shot JFK?
Yeah, let's look at that one started. Yeah.
You can look up how coffee is beneficial and how coffee causes cancer, and you'll find an answer for both.
100%. So I don't even know if the Earth is actually round.
It is.
I believe.
Ask Katy Perry.
I agree, but it made me doubt quite a bit seeing all that stuff.
It's a lot. Is it benefiting you? Is it improving your life? Is it making you a better person? Is it improving the lives of those around you? The knowledge that you're getting.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it's not worth it.
Yeah, because it's what are you doing about it? Especially as we get into adulthood, and if we pay attention enough, we care enough about how we're growing as an individual. You know, as I'm talking to you, if I say something that upsets you and offends you, or maybe pushes a nerve, you know, that causes some insecurity, whatever it is, I can usually read that, just being aware enough through past experiences to say, hey, man, I just said something that I could tell made him uncomfortable. And if I care enough, I will stop and face that awkward conversation to help us work through that. But if I don't, I will let you suffer in that. I won't help us resolve that, and I'll keep doing that same habit to other people, saying whatever I want, doing whatever I want, and not holding myself accountable. So like you're saying is, yes, that information's out there and there's a lot. And if something strikes a chord with you, your responsibility now is to say, hey, okay, I've now identified something that I was most likely even unaware of. You know, especially talking about the foundations of our identity. What am I going to do about it now? I'm confronted with this. So forget even pursuing a business and doing all those and facing those things. When you're facing the insecurities and the struggles of what you went through as a child or at an early age that you've let become a habit and a part of your identity for so many years, man, that's a whole nother scary giant to face. And there are amazing resources out there that can help you, but you have to use them and pursue them in a way that improves you as a person, that holds you accountable, that you hold yourself accountable. And one of the ways that in the drowning noise that helps me find meaning, and when we're talking about those things, I really look at where I want to end up in life. And it's just like putting directions in a GPS on your phone through Google Maps. If you put in a destination, you're going to get all of the right turns, left turns. Hey, go straight for 10 miles. Hey, you're going to be on this highway for 150 miles before you make your next turn. But if you follow those directions, you apply yourself, you'll end up in the destination you want to be. So many people, we have all the noise going on. They do not think and ponder about where they want to end up at. And so they start just taking random turns.
You also have to have the humility to be wrong and to accept that, hey, maybe I'm wrong about this.
That one's tough for anybody. But humility is just another muscle. The more you work it out, the better you become at it. And if you can practice being humble and being able to admit those things, talk about them, you know, even in a marriage with your kids, talking about those things with my children that are embarrassing of what I went through, to make the mistakes necessary to say, hey, this is why you don't do this, and I'll tell you why, and I'll give you a personal experience. It's not easy to tell your kids, I made this bonehead move, and this is why I know this is a bad choice. Right. Bringing up things with your spouse and confronting those feelings of sharing how you struggle with certain emotions, or you struggle with something in your past that makes you feel unworthy. Even with somebody you love so dearly, can be so hard because you're like, well, what if they don't even accept me when I share this? And when you begin to hold those things in, it makes it very difficult to work through them. Being able to be humble enough to say, hey, I'm not perfect and I am struggling with this. Can you walk alongside me through this? But if you can practice that, and you're blessed enough to have people around you that say, hey, I hear you, I'm not judging you for that, and I appreciate you just being honest with me. That's when you can get in and begin to unbecome those things so that you can let them go, surrender them, and focus your thought pattern on something new and become a different version of yourself that's way healthier for everyone around you.
And I think, so if you're watching podcasts or you're watching intellectuals or people that just talk about ideas or concepts or whatever, something for me a practical thing to do too is, do they debate people with opposing views? Because if they're just on their channel and they're just, just talking about whatever, but they don't challenge, those ideas are never challenged, because what the challenge shows is how much they actually know. Like as that Wes Huff, Billy Carson interview, perfect example of someone that was just saying this fantastic story to make money versus somebody that was actually invested in the truth. Seeing just how Billy Carson operated in that debate and just folded because he was just unprepared, and all of his stuff just wasn't backed by anything real.
Fell apart. Yeah.
If you do watch podcasts, if you do take knowledge or resources from the internet, I would also look for those episodes or videos where they are challenging those ideas.
100%. Because if the truth that you are listening to be presented, or even if you're believing, can't stand up to the toughest questions, you have to ask yourself, is it even really true?
Yeah.
And I went through a phase of my own life where I was doubting, or scared. I should say scared. I believed the Bible to be true. I was doing youth ministry, and for whatever reason, I had this overwhelming fear of, man, I'm up on stage teaching young kids every week that this is the ultimate truth. And what if I have not challenged myself enough to find out that there was something else out there and I'm misleading people? And my first instinct was, no, just kind of bury that under the rug and not face that. A lot easier. But for my own personal journey, I knew, no, I have to know if it's really true, it'll face any criticism, any test, and it will hold up. And I went on my own apologetics journey, deep dive. And just like you shared earlier about once you go on that journey yourself, how it strengthened your faith, it was one of the most pivotal pieces of my life to not only strengthen my faith in the Word, grow in the knowledge of my Word, but strengthen my relationship with Jesus, because seeing the principles of the Bible, the truth of the Bible, withstand such difficult questions, ideas, philosophy, and information out there was so reassuring that it made my conviction even deeper in my faith. But yet questioning what you believe is not taught enough, I don't believe. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And being able to question those things and challenge those ideas and thoughts in our lives is crucial. Now, when it comes down to respecting authority, you know, when we talk about kids and all those different things, it's one thing. But asking questions respectfully, asking and challenging thoughts respectfully is 100% within those means. And that's why I try to push my kids to ask why. I mean, they're not doing it to disobey. Now, if they ask why and I tell them why and they do something different, that's disobedience. And when we do that to the Lord, that's the same thing. We're saying we're still choosing our own direction. But when we have that information and we challenge it, God already knows we're thinking those thoughts. So why would we hide them from Him anyways? You know, going on that journey, just like the disciples did after everybody left from being fed and seeing all the miracles. Jesus, can you tell us why you said those things? And when He did, it drew them even closer in their conviction of following Him as their rabbi.
Learning that inquiring was encouraged was really big. Because what I did was I confused inquiring with doubt. I thought it was, if God was leading me into a direction, I thought it was wrong. I thought I just had to sit down, shut up, be along for the ride. But because I was so afraid of like doubting it. But in my walk, it has led to a lot deeper connection of me just saying, okay, God, I'm sure this is where we're going. I just, like, what do I need to look for?
Yeah.
What do I need to do? How can I prepare? I'm no longer worried about what's at the end of the road because I know where that is. I'm no longer worried that I'm not going to be provided for. I know I am. Sometimes I do just need to know like what to look for. I just need 100%. To make sure like I'm on the right track. And I think definitely inquiring is okay.
Yeah, and too many times we treat God like a demanding boss of just shut up and do what you're told. He does expect us to do what He tells us to do, but He is a loving Father who says, hey, hang out with me, sit around the fire. I'm going to tell you some stories. I'm going to give you principles and habits to put in your life. And ultimately, this is where I'm asking you to go. But here's why. This is what it'll produce in your life. These are the amazing things you'll get to experience. The peace that transcends all understanding. You'll have the fruit of the Holy Spirit in your life, and you'll be able to use those to impact other people. And He wants that to be a part of our relationship with Him. and the intimacy of that relationship, of being able to laugh, cry, question, be angry, wonder what's going on. But when we treat him like a domineering or demanding boss and don't get that closeness and intimacy, it really does impact the motive behind what we're doing in our lives.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing also to like add to all this is, so like with 90% of all knowledge being added in the last 2 to 3 years, what I've found is that the majority of that knowledge also just kind of just ties back to biblical principle. Like every quote that I have on my notes list, I can, if I look hard enough, I can find it's tied directly to a biblical principle. So I think what I'm really trying to get at is, it may sound different, it may look different, but another thing that you can do to challenge any new knowledge or ideas that you believe is if you can find it in a biblical principle, it might be worth keeping around. It might be worth keeping that quote around or that statistic handy. When I read the statistic about that 90% of data has been given to us in the last 2 to 3 years, that's overwhelming, but it's also encouraging, because I'm also able to look at that and really challenge every idea that I see people. It's the mob mentality. Like with all this new knowledge, with all these new lectures, with all these new ideas and sermons and whatever, I'm able to challenge these ideas. I've always been pretty contrarian, seeing what everybody else was doing. But now that I can look at all this new knowledge and say, okay, I see this is what everybody else is doing. Why are they doing that? And I can definitely find some knowledge about why everybody's pursuing this and why I maybe shouldn't.
100%. Yeah, if you look at the average at anything in life, when a lot of people are doing something, that usually should raise a red flag for you if you're looking at what's really true in your life. The older I get, I've realized that if I have a lot of just general friends, that means I'm probably being a version of myself to a handful of those, that I'm not consistently being my genuine self.
When you think you should have loads and loads of friends.
Right. Because what you see online, the big group hanging out, just laughing all the time and just doing the things that make you feel good. I've learned the closest friends I have in my life, they challenge me. They push me to be uncomfortable. They tell me things when I'm feeling certain emotions and I'm trying to make decisions, and they say, have you thought of this? And make sure you are doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, but I don't really want to do that. They hold me accountable to that. And those good friends are trying to find the purpose in life, and they're going to do the same for me. And the average of people are looking at all this information and just consuming it. And that's where it becomes overwhelming. A small percentage of people that have access to this and are actually pursuing meaning is a small percentage of the humans we have that have access to it. And so when you look at a situation in your life and there are more people doing something than not, you need to ask yourself why. Because it is a lot easier just to consume it and watch it and enjoy somebody else's, exciting success and adventure than to confront than it is to confront your own things in life and face what you need to go on your own adventure. And so with these questions, with the practical application we're trying to do, we are pushing ourselves and pushing everybody that's listening to do the things necessary to get out of your comfort zone and to use the information to actually produce certain fruit in your life and not just be somebody that consumes it. You see things out there that are amazing that can impact your life, but you never do anything with them.
Even like right before starting doing this, I told you, like, that's where I was at, was like I felt like I'd spent a couple years just absorbing all this knowledge, and now it's like, okay, what do I do with this? I can regurgitate all this stuff, but now what do I do with it?
And that's part of it. That's a growth process of being able to be trained. Just like getting a new job, you got to go through a training process before you can get started.
100%.
But make sure you start looking for that opportunity to now become a functioning employee in the kingdom of heaven, of saying, hey, I've been trained up. I've pushed myself to let go of things that have been holding me back. I've pushed myself to seek out truth that was confronting to what I thought, was how life worked. And now I'm ready to go out and not only live this for myself, live the genuine version of who God created me to be, but I'm going to help others do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really important.
And it really starts too, if you don't do it for anybody else, make sure you're the version of yourself that helps your spouse and your kids. That's your first ministry, to be able to do those things as they go throughout their daily life as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be on a podcast like we're doing, or with a camera rolling. It doesn't have to be thousands of people. It doesn't have to be in a church where you have a congregation coming every week. But to first focus on yourself and impact the people closest to you on a daily basis, that is you impacting the world around you every day by hearing this truth and applying it to your life, to make those practical applications to help you change the world around you.
Yeah. And knowledge and understanding are two very different things. It's so easy to get knowledge. It's very difficult to get understanding.
Yeah. And you can only talk to somebody and talk about ideas at their level of understanding. Mm-hmm. And it is very difficult when you are pushing in and pursuing these things. And that's where patience comes in, of trying to share these principles with people that have yet to even confront these things in their life. And it can be very challenging. But regardless of who else understands them, I want to make sure I'm doing my piece to honor the Lord, to where I'm seeking that understanding, because ultimately I'm accountable to Him and Him alone. I can lose everything and everyone in my life, but I can never lose the Lord. And as long as I keep that perspective, it'll keep me focused on taking these truths and applying them to my life.
Yeah.
So, man, great quote starting off. We had 3 big questions that we worked through today. Really challenged me to keep pushing in on how I can take what God's given me, the one opportunity I have at life, and the moment He's given me in human history, to live an epic and adventurous life in a way that honors Him and helps me understand who I was created to be, so that I can live in that peace. So another good episode today. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace out.
It's a wrap.